Nancy McKenna, and I'm here on behalf of the Illinois State Bar Association. We're putting on a program today called Veteran Courts. To my immediate right is Judge Lawrence Flood. Judge Flood was appointed an Associate Judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County in June of 2011. He has served in the 1st Municipal Division and the Child Protective Division. He's currently assigned to the Criminal Division at 26 in California. As part of his judicial duties, he presides over the Veterans Probation Call at 26 in California, and he will be most helpful to explaining to us the process of the veteran court system in Cook County, Illinois. Judge Flood also is an adjunct professor of law at the John Marshall Law School. Next to Judge Flood is Mark Kammerer. Mark is a psychotherapist, a licensed psychotherapist, and he is currently the coordinator of alternative prosecutions and sentencing for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Mark has been in the coordinator position for protective services and sentencing for 11 and a half years, of which that time he most recently is responsible for approximately 30 programs. So, I will start with you, Judge Flood. What exactly is a veteran court here in Cook County?
Well, the Veterans Court at 26th in California, because there are Veterans Courts in all the other municipal districts in Cook County, but specifically the Veterans Court at 26th in California deals with veterans who have been screened to determine their veteran status, and once their case has gotten to the point where there's an agreement among the attorneys and also the judge who is hearing the case that probation would be the outcome of the case, then if the veteran wants to be part of the veterans program, he is then transferred to my room and to my veterans call.
And how does a veteran qualify to be part of the veterans call and part of your courtroom?
When the case first comes into the system, either at the bond court or at a preliminary hearing, there's a person, a representative from the Veterans Administration who is there. And as part of the screening process that they do with any person who is appearing in court for the first time and gathering information about them for purposes of bond and other issues that deal with the case when it first comes into the system, a determination is made as to whether or not the person was a veteran, and if so, what types of veterans benefits they would be available to them.
What type of offenses would qualify for a veteran to, is it all offenses or particular types of offenses?
No, we have a statute, the Veterans and Service Members Treatment Act, which is a law here in Illinois, which delineates the type of crimes for which you cannot be given Veterans Court probation. I think it's suffice it to say that nonviolent crimes for which probation is the appropriate outcome or an appropriate sentencing outcome, then a person who is a veteran would be eligible to participate in the Veterans Court.
Now, Mark, in your experience, what type of issues come up with the veteran from a psychotherapy perspective that would get them in Judge Flood's courtroom?
I would say the vast majority of veterans that eventually come to Veterans Court have some combination of substance abuse problem, mental health problems, alcohol. Very predominantly, those three issues come into play. The impact of their military service certainly has something to do with their current state of mind, but generally speaking, I would say those are the primary issues.
And a lot of the veterans that may be suffering from substance abuse, could it be due to post-traumatic stress syndrome or traumatic brain injury? We've heard of late in the media that seems to be more prevalent among veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, I definitely think that the substance abuse issues that come up that we see are clearly related, at least in part, at least have been exacerbated by military service. You know, the stresses that the veterans have gone through during their time primarily overseas certainly contributes to that. The mental health components of it, like PTSD, are a little more difficult to determine, but we have a fabulous working relationship with the Veterans Administration, and everybody who comes into Judge Flood's Veterans Court has a thorough evaluation for numerous problems, numerous possible problems, and yes, PTSD and other mental health issues certainly enter into it and are a major thing that is looked at in determining what the service plan is going to be for treatment.
And the state's attorney's role is what in court?
Initially, well, as Judge Flood referenced the state statute, the statute says that an individual can be admitted to Veterans Court only with the agreement of the defense and the prosecution. So meaning, in terms of the defense, it has to be a voluntary activity by the person. We can't force somebody into that. There's not any effort on the part of the court to say that everybody is a veteran, so they go to Judge Flood for Veterans Court. That's not the way it works.
Right.
So the person has to be in agreement to it. Beyond that, the prosecution's role is to make the determination that the criminal background meets the eligibility that's set out in the statute. And the statute says clearly that a person is ineligible if they're currently charged with a crime of violence or there's a conviction of violence within the last 10 years. So the state's attorney's office has a role in determining somebody's background and current charge in terms of eligibility. Beyond that, the assistant state's attorney is a team member of Judge Flood's team within Veterans Court and is responsible for keeping track of some compliance issues, the person doing what they're supposed to do, working with the probation officer who's assigned to the court to determine if somebody has violated their probation, and questioning whether or not somebody is willfully non-compliant with the program and maybe making a recommendation that some other course of action should be taken.
Are there special probation officers assigned to Veterans Court, or is it just part of the Cook County probation officer load?
No, there is a special probation officer. Again, the judge was referencing there are 6 veterans courts in
Right.
Cook County,
Oh.
and each one has a special designated, dedicated probation officer assigned to it.
That's, I would imagine, very helpful to the veterans. Yeah. Now, when was Veteran Court started?
Well, the Cook County Veterans Court was started in 2009, so it's fairly recent, and it began in Cook County at 26th in California. It was the idea of Judge Paul Beeble, Judge John Kirby, and Judge Timothy Evans, in conjunction with the State's Attorney's Office and the Public Defender's Office. The program originally started in Buffalo, New York in 2008 by a judge. I believe the judge's name was Judge Russell in Buffalo, New York. And that concept then was brought to Cook County through the 3 judges whom I named. And so it's a fairly new, considering the other specialty courts in Cook County, it's fairly new.
How would you say it's working, Judge Flood, from your perspective?
Well, I've been assigned to the court now for the last year, and I took the call over from Judge Kirby when he was transferred downtown. And I know by reputation, Judge Kirby did a great job in setting up the program. And hopefully we've been able to carry that, what he started on in the probation, veterans probation call that we have now.
What would be one of the most common criminal offenses that you see a veteran come to your court with? Would it be driving under the influence, or?
No, most of the cases that we see, well, let me put it this way. Most of the veteran defendants that we have crimes of drug use or retail theft. In other words, drugs and crimes rather, that are associated with people who are addicted to drugs.
Okay.
Okay, and that's the most common type of defendant and type of case that we see on the veterans probation call. And it's obvious that most of, as Mark indicated, many of the veterans have issues dealing with drugs and also psychiatric issues. So most of the veterans that we have are duly diagnosed.
Now, do you have any particular success stories you'd like to share with us that you've encountered in your, I know you've only been doing this for a year, as
Right.
you've indicated. but maybe a particular veteran that you were very proud and very happy that the veteran court was available and that you really felt it helped that particular veteran?
Well, we have a couple of veterans now who are have almost completed the 24-month period of veterans probation, and it's really gratifying to see the change from the point where they first came into the call, were placed on veterans probation, and dealing with the myriad of problems that not only the veteran but any defendant who's on probation and trying to recover from drug use and dealing with psych issues, to see the efforts that they make in trying to deal with the issues that they have.
And certainly, the goal is that they not be back in the criminal justice system, that they not be a repeat.
That's right.
A revisit. Mark, from your perspective, any success stories that were particularly touching to you that you were very proud of, that this program's out there?
One of the things that I do, not just with Veterans Court, but with all the treatment courts and alternative prosecution sentencing programs, is to look at specifically impact on criminal behavior and financial impact of the program. So I can say in a general way, what we've seen in the 3+ years that we've been doing Veterans Court is that we compare criminal activity in similar time periods before somebody comes into the program versus when they're in the program versus time after they left the program. And very consistently, the decrease in criminal activity, meaning arrests and convictions, decreases by about 85 to 90%.
That's very significant, I would think. Yeah.
And so my office, we're particularly interested in the individual as a person and hoping that the court can help them turn their lives around. But we're also very interested in criminal impact. So that we look at felony arrests, felony convictions, misdemeanors. Across the board, the decrease in criminal activity is 85 to 90%. And in order to come up with a fiscal impact, I tend to look at the safest way of looking at it, because I don't want people to come back later and say, well, you're interpreting it this way or whatever, so you're just coming up with numbers.
Right.
The simplest way for me is to look at days spent in custody. We know how much it costs for somebody to spend a day in custody in Cook County Jail and the state of Illinois Department of Corrections, and we look at the days that they spend in custody, again, comparable periods, a year before they came in, first year they're with us, first year after they complete the program successfully. And each year, our conservative estimate is that it saves the county somewhere a little bit in excess of $1 million, just in custody costs. That's not to say that that's not to add in the costs that are saved by the reduced criminal activity, because then it becomes
right.
somewhat
Law enforcement
subjective.
cost.
But we know that that's an additional reduction. So we know that it's a minimum of like $1.25 million a year that the program saves. And then we come to what the judge is saying, which is the human part of it. As somebody who's worked in human service my whole career, that's what it's all about. I mean, we see people who never were in trouble before they went into service. Something happened to them there, and this court is able to help them access the services that they're entitled to, and help them turn their lives around. So
now, are there treatment services all provided by the Veterans Administration, or some provided by the county health system? Or?
The vast majority are provided almost 100% by the VA.
Okay.
But again, as the judge was referencing before, it depends on the level of benefits that they have available. We decided, Judge Kirby and the team at that point when we first started this, decided that anybody who was a verified veteran should have access to this court. Whether they had full benefits or partial benefits, we weren't concerned. If they met the other requirements, they were eligible in our eyes. So I would say 80 to 85% of the people who are in Veterans Court get almost all of their services through the VA. For the people who are not full VA, Veterans Health Administration eligible, they still get a lot of veteran services. They get a lot through the state of Illinois. The state supplements some of that. And in addition to that, there are other, like if it's a mental health situation, we can help them access mental health services that are available through the state or the county or the city, for that matter.
I would imagine the statute defines who is eligible for full veteran services. What's the distinction between partial or full status?
The VA determines that.
Okay, all right.
And the VA, their eligibility criteria is very detailed. So we have a very good working relationship with the VBA, which is the Veteran Benefits Administration. And what the process that the judge was referring to is that they have somebody who's assigned to work with us. And they will tell us what their benefit level is. And it's determined by the length of time that they were in service, whether they were in combat.
In either of your experiences, do you find that the veteran that gets involved in criminal activity, is the time period closer to their period of discharge from the military, or is it the longer that they have been discharged that there's more, and they're not in treatment, that they're more likely to be involved in some type of criminal activity?
And that's an interesting question, because most of the veterans on my call right now are either Vietnam. I have a couple of Korean War vets. I think I may have one or two Iraqi or Afghanistan war vets, but primarily Vietnam era vets.
So there's a long time since
Right,
discharge.
right.
That is
And if you
interesting.
think about it, for them to reach the felony trial court level at 26th in California, and when you look at their background, they've had a number of arrests in their
For non-felony, or maybe
non-felony, but developing to the point where they ultimately wind up with a felony charge at 26th in California.
Now, they would not be eligible for veteran court if they had more than one. This has to be your first felony charge, correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It depends.
Okay.
The statute sets out the criteria, and as far as the final disposition of the case in the plea for probation, that's normally an agreement between the state's attorney and the attorney representing the defendant. And once they've agreed upon that plea, which would encompass the probation, then a determination is made by the defendant whether he wants to participate in the Veterans Probation Program. And if he does, then he's assigned to my courtroom. They sign a contract. All the parties sign a contract. The state's attorney, the private attorney, or the public defender, the defendant, and the judge. And it sets forth in the contract what's required of you during this 24-month period of veterans probation.
Does it set forth how frequent they have to, it doesn't set forth the specifics of their treatment, but that they have
No.
to be in regular contact with the Veterans
Right.
Administration
The
program?
The treatment plan is unique to that particular
Right.
person. So what they would be required to do, the contract just states that they will cooperate
Okay.
and participate as recommended by the service providers. So based upon whatever individual needs that they have that are set forth in the program by the providers, then it's incumbent upon them as part of the probation to comply with those particular requirements.
And they would do that through their regular reporting to their probation
Regular
officer?
reporting to the probation officer, and also reporting to the VA representatives or the liaisons that deal with the services that they're being provided.
Now, I've myself have read, and some people have been critical of the VA, that there's not enough psychological support services in the VA for returning veterans, particularly of the most recent wars, the Iraq and Afghanistan. Mark, do you feel that from your experience being involved in this program with the State's Attorney's Office, resources can always be better with any social agency, but do you feel that the people you've worked with and the resources that the VA has available is meeting at least the needs that we see in Cook County at this point?
Well, I think if anything, we're a little bit spoiled because we actually have access to 3 major medical centers in the Cook County area,
Yeah.
Hines, Jesse Brown, and North Chicago. And our experience is that everybody is evaluated for mental health needs and treated very quickly. I remember one story that I tell all the time. Actually, it was when Judge Kirby was with us. The team had the probation officer had noticed something that he thought the vet, probably needed some intervention psychiatrically. And so we discussed that because we meet with the judge beforehand, so he knows what's going on. And Judge Kirby said from the bench, we think that this guy needs to be seen. Is it possible? What can you do to help us do that? The VA case manager went in the back, came out and said, if he can get there in 45 minutes, there's a doctor that will see him right now, which was amazing, you know, in any healthcare system that somebody would be seen right away. That's pretty much been my experience of the VA's role in this. They have inpatient care, they have residential step-down care, they have outpatient. They've been right in the front with us.
And now I don't know if you can speak to this because you see them once they're involved in the criminal justice system, but I wonder how soon they're evaluated or programs are available to a veteran before they're in a position that they need to go to Veterans Court, or that's an option for them, where you indicated, Judge Flood, that you've seen a lot Vietnam War vets and even a Korean War veteran, that perhaps that's changed, that they're evaluated from a mental health perspective, you know, post-discharge or before discharge, or once they come back to the United States, if they've been in active duty, that there's some type of evaluation that's just done, or that there's more of a mental health service that's available that perhaps wasn't available post discharge from the military in Vietnam or Korea.
That's interesting, because I would have thought that was the case. But when I took the call over and I started to interact with the veterans, it's interesting some of the comments that they make. Because, you know, as I said, the team will figure out a plan for this particular veteran. And then he or she avails themselves of this particular program. And many of them make the comments, Judge, I never knew that they had all these programs available to me, you know. And some of them have said, had I known that, I would have participated earlier in a criminal setting.
So perhaps the communication method, or the way programs were communicated post-Vietnam, post-Korea, has changed.
I think times are different now with the number of people we have coming back from multiple assignments in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I think that as a society, we're more mindful of the implications of multiple deployments. And I think that the VA, at least from what I've seen, and Mark may agree with me on that, I think we're more cognizant of the fact that we need to get to the veterans quicker and let them know what services are available and how they can avail themselves of the services.
Now, Mark, you were part of the program from the inception with Judge Kirby. How did it come about?
Well, you know, Cook County has had treatment courts since the late 90s. We had, the first 3 were all drug courts, and then after a few years of that, it became apparent to those of us working with those courts that there were a significant number of people with co-occurring disorder, meaning mental health and substance abuse. So we established the first mental health courts in the county. So, and then at that point, a few years after that, after Judge Beeble had made contact with Judge Russell and brought him in, we discovered that there was something to be said for treating veterans separately too, because they are, no matter what you want to say, it's a different population. The veteran population is a different group of individuals, and so we decided to have meetings with the VA and see if we couldn't come up with something special for them. And what our experience has been is that all these treatment courts are great. They all have, I could give you statistics on all of them, and they all work very well. But what makes the Veterans Court truly unique is the VA. It's the fact that these individuals are veterans, and it's the fact that they have access to VA services. And as the judge was saying, that what makes it truly unique is they, in addition to their probation officer, they have a federal VA employee who is their case manager, who can help them access and understand what services are available that they're entitled to. So I think it just came about because it seemed that there were services there that we could help them access.
Now, are there, compared to your other persons that are part of drug court, are they more successful, the veterans, at completing the program in Veterans Court?
Definitely. People in Veterans Court are by far the most successful in fulfilling their full obligation to the program. I think of people who are eligible to have graduated, completed the program, it's a roughly 70% that have done so in Veterans Court, as opposed to about 50% in mental health court and between 30 and 40% in drug court. Not that those are bad numbers.
Right.
That still, you're talking about people with extensive backgrounds, but Veterans Court, the veterans, for some reason, they get attached to this task and they move towards it, and they're not satisfied till they complete it.
What would you like the audience to take away from your experience with the Veterans Court? And what would you like a veteran, if a veteran's out here watching, what would you want them to know? Mark?
Well, what I would like them to know is that the criminal justice system, there's a part of it that is not interested in punishment, interested in help. And the state's attorney's office is part of that, the judiciary is part of that, trying to get people help through treatment and education when possible, because it's better for everybody if people get better.
Thank you both so much. It's been very enlightening, and you should be very proud of being involved in this process, because you've helped veterans and people that have served our country, and that it just sounds like such a wonderful program, and I thank you both for being here
Thank
on
you.
behalf of the
Thank you
Illinois
for
State
having
Bar
us, Nancy.
Association.
Thank you.
Good night.